Hello, Eternal Life fans. It's Rowan from the Eternal Life Fan Club. And today I wanted to talk about, I wanted to respond to another point that my roommate made. You know, my roommate wearing those glasses. So what's the next thing my roommate said here? He said, I'm sweating like a pig. Because I'm telling you, the heat here is incredible. I'm sweating like a pig. I found this kind of ironic because, yeah, you're sweating like a pig. You know what you remind me of? One of the three little pigs. The little pig who built his house out of straw.
I built my house of straw. I built my house of hay. I toot my flute. I don't give a hoot and play around all day.
Okay, because the little pig who built his house out of straw, he was the fearless little pig. You know, he would go around singing, "Who's afraid of the big bad wolf?" That's like my roommate saying, "Who's afraid of the big bad God?" Because my roommate, he doesn't have any fear of God, any fear of the hypothetical God like I like to preach. I like to say, hey, regardless of whether you believe in God, you can still try to make preparations. You can live as though there were a God, regardless of what you believe. You know, I talk about even being a God-fearing atheist. That is a concept I would like to popularize because you can be a God-fearing atheist. It has to do with your actions. If you're acting like there might be a God and you're trying to consider that possibility in your life, that makes you a God-fearing atheist. So you can fear the possibility of there being a God without believing in God. And it has to do with your actions. If you're guessing the rules of God and then living according to those rules, that makes you a God-fearing atheist. It doesn't necessarily make your guess correct. You could be a God-fearing atheist, but then your guess is completely dumb, and maybe the rules you came up with, I would completely disagree with those rules. But at least you've tried to make some guess. Someone could make a mockery of it as well. Someone could just be God-fearing atheist, but their rules are completely sick and twisted. They might have no morality to those rules. So that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, making a set of rules that seems reasonable, logical, as far as, be honest, be real. If there's a hypothetical God that has any kind of morality. So I make the basic assumption that if there's a hypothetical God, obviously I'm making the basic assumption that this God would be good, moral, virtuous, and therefore reward good, ethical, moral, virtuous behavior. Obviously someone could make a guess and say, oh no, there's this God that rewards evil behavior. There's this God that wants me to be evil or something. That's not what I'm talking about. That's a stupid guess, in my opinion.
Think about that. That's just dumb.
So my roommate is the fearless little pig. When you think of my roommate, think of the fearless little pig and use him as an example of what not to be. Be a God-fearing person. Live your life according to rules. Just pretend, make the assumption that you might be judged for everything you're doing, that everything you're doing is being watched. You can't get away with anything.
Be aware, there's always someone that's watching you.
That's what I'm talking about here. And because you don't know the rules, because none of us know what the rules are, it makes sense to guess that the rules are stricter, guess that the rules are very, very, very strict rather than unstrict, right? Make a very hard set of rules. That way, if you fall a little short, you have a better chance of actually succeeding. You want to just pretend that those rules are like you need to be perfect. Because then let's say the hypothetical God had some amount of leniency in that rule set. Then you'd have a better chance of succeeding. Because if you're aiming for perfection and you fall a little bit short, well then maybe you're still practically perfect. And so you're going to have a better chance of passing the test, living a practically perfect life, rather than if you're aiming for like mediocre, you're aiming for middle of the road, you know, thinking you can get away with stuff, bad things, sins, or whatever. If you're living according to a mediocre rule set, you know, you're going to have a much less chance of actually passing the test. So you want to aim for a very strict, judgmental, you know, pretend that God is the strictest, most judgmental, wrathful type of God. That's a safer God to prepare for, right? If we don't know how God is, we don't know if God is forgiving, or if we don't know if God is unforgiving, or the level of mercy God might have, if it's all just hypothetical, you know, it makes more sense to prepare for the very unforgiving type of God. You want to prepare for an extremely judgmental God, because that's just a safer assumption, right? It's that whole saying that says hoping for the best but expecting the worst. So you can hope that maybe God will forgive you for this or that infraction, but that should be a hope. It shouldn't be an expectation. You should expect that God won't forgive you. You should expect that God requires and demands moral perfection and excellence. Okay? You should expect that God demands you to be practically perfect. And that's going to motivate you even more to reach for that perfection. Okay? Because if you're operating under the assumption that God is forgiving and merciful and all this kind of thing, then that's gonna leave you with less motivation to strive for excellence. Okay? Motivation, for me, a lot of my motivation comes from fearing the hypothetical God. And the stricter of a hypothetical God I can prepare for, the more motivation I'm going to have, the more fear I'm going to have, that's going to really push me to that next level of moral perfection and excellence. Okay? You see why it's so important to fear the hypothetical God? Because that fear really drives us. It drives me to perfect myself even more. Okay? Otherwise, you know, I might get lazy. I might, who knows? So, yeah. So, to summarize here, be a wise little pig, okay? Be a wise little pig, firstly, by not eating pig, okay? Don't eat any pork. That's a whole nother video. Be a wise little pig by building your house out of bricks. Your eternal life strategy should be well fortified. Fortified with the fear of death. That should be moving you to action. You should be acting like you're afraid of death by avoiding all the dangers, by being obsessed with your health and everything. And your house should be built out of bricks in regards to your fear of the hypothetical God. Are you acting like you fear the hypothetical God? Keep in mind here, no belief required. You don't have to believe in the hypothetical God in order to prepare for the hypothetical God. You're preparing for the hypothetical God insofar as how are you acting? You're acting like you might be judged. You're trying to obey rules. You're living according to rules that you're guessing might be the rules of the hypothetical God. Be a wise little pig. Build your eternal life strategy out of bricks. Thank you. And may you live forever.
I've been teased several times, and I've just thought to myself, man's decision, whatever. God's decision, something. They think I'm weird? Go ahead. You're not the ones who are going to be judging me. God is. It matters what He thinks of me. It doesn't matter what you think.